Lazarus Come Forth by Ray Bradbury. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Dale Grothmann. The morgue ship had gleaned information from space that would end the 300-year war. Knowledge that would defeat the aggressor Martians, if Brandon could carry it to Earth. Lazarus Come Forth by Ray Bradbury. Logan's way of laughing was bad. "There's a new body up in the airlock, Brandon. Climb the rungs and have a look." Logan's eyes had a green shine to them, eager and intent. They were ugly, obscene. Brandon swore under his breath. This room of the morgue ship was crowded with their two personalities. Besides that, there were scores of cold shelves of bodies freezing quietly, and the insistent vibration of the coroner tables, machinery spinning under them. And Logan was a little machine that never stopped talking. "Leave me alone!" Brandon rose up, tall and thinned by the years, looking as old as a pocked meteor. "Just keep quiet." Logan sucked on his cigarette. "Scared to go upstairs? Scared it might be your son we just picked up?" Brandon reached Logan in about one stride, and while the morgue ship slipped on through space, he clutched the coroner's blue uniform with the small bones inside it and hung it up against the wall, pressing inward until Logan couldn't breathe. Logan blew air. His eyes looked helpless. He tried to speak, and could only grunt like a stuck pig. He waved his short arms, flapping. Brandon kept him there, crucified on a fist. "I told you. Let me search for my son's body in my own way. I don't need your tongue." Logan's eyes were losing their shine, were getting blind and glazed. Brandon stepped back, releasing the little assistant. Logan bumped softly against the metal flooring, his mouth hungry for air, his nostrils flaring for breath. Brandon watched the little face of Logan over the crouched, gasping body, with red color and anger shooting up into it with every passing second. "Coward!" He threw it out of himself. Logan did. "Got yellow, neon tubing for your spine. Coward! Never went to war, never did anything for Earth against Mars." Brandon said the words in slow motion. "Shut up." "Why?" Logan crept back, inching up the metal hull. The blood pumps under the skirts of the tables pulsed across the warm silence. "Does it hurt? The truth? Your son'd be proud of you, okay? Ha!" He coughed and spat. "He was so damned ashamed of you, he went and signed up for space combat. So he got lost from his ship during a battle." Logan licked his lips very carefully. "So, to make up for it, you signed on to morgue ship. Try and find his body. Try to make amends. I know you. You wouldn't join the space warriors to fight. No guts for that. Had to get a nice, easy job on a morgue ship." Lines appeared in Brandon's gaunt cheeks. His eyes were closed, the lids pale. He said, and tried to believe it himself, "Someone has to pick up the bodies after the battle. They can't go flying on forever in their own orbits. They deserve burial." The bitterness of Logan struck even deeper. "Who are you trying to convince?" He was on his feet now. "Me? It's different. I got a right to run this ship. I was in the other war." "You're a liar," Brandon retorted. "You hunted radium in the asteroids with a mineral tug. You took this morgue ship job so you could go right on hunting radium, picking up bodies on the side." Logan laughed softly, but not humorously. "So what? At least I'm no coward. I'll burn anybody who gets in my way." He thought it over. "Unless," he added, "they give me a little money." Brandon turned away, feeling ill. He forced himself to climb up the rungs toward the airlock, where that fresh body lay, newly stillborn from space by the retrieving claw. His palms left wet, shiny prints on the rungs. His climbing feet made a soft noise in the cold metal silence. The body lay in the cold airlock's center, as thousands had laid before. Its posture was one of easy slumber, relaxed, and not speaking ever again. Brandon took in his breath. Numbly, he realized it was not his son. Every time a new body was found, he feared, and yet hoped it would be Richard. Richard of the easy laughter and the good smile and dark curly hair. Richard, who was now floating off somewhere toward some far entity. Brandon's eyes dilated. He went to his knees, and with effective darts of his eyes, he covered the vital points of this strange uniform with the young body inside. His heart pounded briefly, and then he got up again, and he acted like he had been struck in the face. He walked unsteadily to the rungs. "Logan," he called down the hole in a numbed voice. "Logan, come up here, quick!" Logan climbed lazily up, emitting grunts and smoke. "Look here," said Brandon, kneeling again by the body. Logan looked and didn't believe it. "Where'd the hell you get that?" Lying there, the face of the body was like snow, framed by the ebony black of the hair. The eyes were blue jewels, caught in the snow. There were slender fingers reclining against the hips. But most important of all was the cut of the silver metal uniform, the gray leather belt, and the bronze triangle over the silent heart, with the numerals 51 on it. Logan held onto the rungs. 300 years old! He whispered it. 300 years old, he said. Yes. The numerals 51 were enough for Brandon. After all these centuries, and in perfect condition. Look how calm he is. Most corpses' faces aren't pretty. Something happened 300 years ago, and he's been drifting alone ever since. Brandon caught his breath. "What's wrong?" snapped Logan. "This man," said Brandon wonderingly, "committed suicide." "How do you figure?" "There's not a mark of decompression, centrifugal force, disintegrator, or ray burn on him. He simply stepped out of a ship. Why should a scientist of the 51st Circle commit suicide?" "They had wars back there too," said Logan. "But this is the first time I've ever seen a stiff from one of them. It can't happen. He should have been messed up by meteors." A strange prickling crept over Brandon. "When I was a kid, I remember thumbing through history books, reading about those famous 51 scientists of the Circle, who were doing experimental work on Pluto back in the year 2100. I memorized their uniforms and this bronze badge. I couldn't mistake it. There was a rumor that they were experimenting with some new universal power weapon." "A myth," said Logan. "Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But before that super weapon was completed, Earth fell beneath Mars' assault. The 51 scientists destroyed themselves and their base when the Martians came. The myth says that if the Martians had been only a month later, the weapon would have been out of blueprint and into metal." Brandon stopped talking and looked at the long-boned, easily slumbering scientist. "And now he shows up, one of the original 51. I wonder what happened. Maybe he tried to reach Earth and had to leap into space to escape the Martians. Logan, we've got history with us, pulled in out of space, cold and stark under our hands. Logan laughed uneasily. Yeah, now if we only had that weapon, maybe there'd be something to sing about, by God. Brandon jerked. Logan looked at him. What's eating you? Brandon lay his fingers on the dead scientist's skull. Maybe, just maybe, we have got the weapon, he said. His hand trembled. The coroner pumps throbbed warmly under the table, while manipulating tendrils darted swiftly, efficiently, over the dead scientist's body. Brandon moved too, like a machine. In a regular fury, he had forced Logan to hurry the body down into the preparation room, inject adrenaline, thermal units, apply the blood pump, and accomplish 1,000 other demanding and instantaneous tasks. Now, out of the way, Logan. You're more trouble than help. Logan stumbled back. Okay, don't get snotty. It won't work. I keep telling you, all these years. Brandon could see nothing. Logan's voice was muffled, far away. There was only the surge of pumps, the sweating heat of the little cubicle, and niche number 12 waiting to receive this body if he failed. Brandon swallowed tightly. Niche number 12 waiting, cold, ready, waiting for a body to fill it. He had to fight to keep it empty. He began sing-songy words over and over as he injected stimulants into the body. He didn't know where the words came from. From childhood, maybe. From his old religious memories. Lazarus, come forth, Brandon said softly, bending close, adjusting the manipulatory tendrils. Lazarus, come forth. Logan snorted. Lazarus, will you can that? Brandon had to talk to himself. Inside his brain, he's got the energy weapon that Earth can use to end the war. It's been frozen in there 300 years. If we can thaw it out... Who ever heard of reviving a body after that long? He is perfectly preserved, perfectly frozen. Oh God, this is fate. I know it. I feel it. Came to find Richard, and I found something bigger. Lazarus, Lazarus, come forth from the tomb. The machines thrummed loudly, beating into his ears. Brandon listened, watched for just one pulse, just one beat, one word, one moment of life. Air for the lungs, and Brandon attached oxygen cones over the fine nose and relaxed lips. Pressure on the ribs. Metal plates pressured the rib cage slowly out and in. Circulation. Brandon touched the controls at the foot of the table, and the whole table tilted back and forth like a whining teeter-totter. A report clipped through on audio. Morgue ship. Battle Unit 766 calling morgue ship. Off orbit of Pluto, 234 cc, 0.02. Off 32, 1/7. Follow up. Battle just terminated. 6 Martian ships destroyed. 1 Earth ship blasted apart and bodies thrown into space. Please recover. 79 men. Bodies in orbit, headed towards Sun at 23456 an hour. Check. Logan flipped his cigarette away. That's us. We've got work to do. Come on, let the stiff cool. He'll be here when we come back. No, Brandon said, fairly shouting it, eyes wild. He's more important than all those men out there. We can help them later. He can help us now. The table came to a halt, bringing absolute silence. Brandon bent forward to press his ear against the warm rib casing. Wait! There it was. Unbelievably, there it was. A tiny pulse, stirring like a termite, down under, softly and sluggishly moving through the body, jabbing the heart, and... Now! Brandon cried out. He was shaking all over. He was setting the machine in operation again, and talking and laughing and going crazy with it. He's alive! He's alive! Lazarus has come from the tomb. Lazarus reborn again. Notify Earth immediately. At the end of an hour, the pulse was timing normal. The temperature was lowering down from a fever, and Brandon moved about the preparations room, watching every quiver of the body's internal organs through a tubular fluoroscope. He exulted. This was having Richard alive again. It was compensation. You roared into space looking somewhere for your lost self-respect, your pride, looking for your son who is shooting on some soundless orbit into nothing. And now the biggest child of fate is deposited in your arms to warm and bring to life. It was impossible. It was good. Brandon almost laughed. He almost forgot that he had ever known fear of death. This was conquering it. This was like bringing Richard back to life. But even more, it meant things to Earth and humanity. Things about weapons and power and peace. Logan interrupted Brandon's exalted thinking by blowing smoke in his face. You know something, Brandy? This is damn good. You done something, mister. Yeah. I thought I told you to notify Earth. I've been watching you, like a mama hen and her chick. I've been thinking, too. Yeah. Logan shook the ashes off his smoke. Ever since you pulled in this prize fish, I've been turning it over in my mind. Go up to the radio room and call Earth. We've got to rush the scientist to Moonbase immediately. We can talk later. There was a hard green slime to Logan's narrow eyes again. He pointed a finger at Brandon. Here's the way I get it. Do we get rewarded for finding this guy? Hell no. It's our routine work. We're supposed to pick up bodies. Here we got a guy who's the key to the whole damn war. Brandon's lips hardly moved. Call Earth. Now hold on a moment, Brandy. Let me finish this. I've been thinking maybe the Martians like to own him too. Maybe they'd like to be around when he starts talking. Brandon made a fist. You heard what I said. Logan put his hand behind him. I just want to talk peaceably with you, Brandy. I don't want trouble. But all we'll get for finding this stuff is a kiss on the cheek and a medal on the chest. Hell! Brandon was going to hit him hard before he saw the gun in Logan's fingers, whipped out and pointing. Take a look at this, Brandy, and don't lose your supper. In spite of himself, Logan quailed. It was almost an involuntary action. His whole body plucked back, arching, pulling with it. Now, let's march up to the radio room. I got a little calling to do. Get on with you. Hup! In the radio room, Logan touched studs, raising the mic to his lips, and said, Beam to Mars! Beam to Mars! Morgue ship of Earth calling. Mars beam answer. After an interval, Mars gave answer. Logan said, I've just picked up a body of a 5-1 Circle scientist. He's been resuscitated. Give me your fleet commander. I've got things to talk over with him. Logan smiled. Oh, hello, Commander. Half an hour later, the discussion was over, the plans made. Logan hung up, satisfied. Brandon looked at him as if he couldn't believe he was serious. Back down in the control room, Logan set a course, and then forced Brandon to get the body ready. He bragged about the deal. "A half-ton of radium, Brandy. Not bad, eh? Good pay. More than Earth'd give me for my routine duty." Brandon shuddered. "You're a fool. The Martians will kill us." Logan pantomimed him into moving the body onto a rollered table and taking it to the emergency life craft airlock. "I'm not that dumb. I'm having you wire this emergency lifeboat with explosives. We collect the minerals first. We blow up the body if the Martians act funny. We make them wait until we've collected our half and gotten 5 hours start toward Earth before we allow them to pick up the body. Nice, eh?" Brandon swayed over the task of wiring the lifeboat with explosive. "You're cutting your own throat, handing over a weapon like that to the Martian enemy." It was no again from Logan. "After the Martians pick up the body and we're safely on our way home to Earth, I press a button and the whole damn thing blows up. They call it double-crossing." "Destroy the body?" "Hell yes! Think I want a weapon like that turned over to the enemy? Gah!" "The war'll go on for years." "So Earth'll wind up winning anyhow. We're getting along, slow but sure. And when the war's over, I got a load of radium to set myself up in business and a big future in front of me." "So you kill millions of men for that?" "What did they do for me? Ruin my guts in the last war?" There had to be some argument, something to say, quick, something to do to a man like Logan. Brandon thought quickly. "Look, Logan, we can work this, but save the body." "Don't be funny." "Put one of the other bodies in the ship we send out. Save Lazarus' body and run back to Earth with it," insisted Brandon. The little assistant shook his head. "The Martians will have an intermaterial beam focused on the emergency ship when they get within 100,000 miles of her. They'll be able to tell then if the body's dead or alive. No dice, Brandy." It was hardly like leaping himself, thought Brandon. It was just frustration and rage and unthinking action. Brandon jumped. Logan hardly flickered an eyelid as he pressed the trigger on his paragun. It paralyzed the legs from under Brandon, and he collapsed. The gun sprayed over his groin and chest and face, too, in a withering shower of red-hot needles. The lights went out. There was a loose sensation of empty space and acceleration minus power. Pure, soundless momentum. Brandon forced his eyes open painfully and found himself alone in the preparations room, lying stretched upon one of the coroner's tables, bound with metal fiber. "Logan!" He bellowed it up through the ship. He waited. He did it again. "Logan!" He fought the metal fiber, knotting his fists, twisting his arms. He yanked himself back and forth. It pretty well held, except for a looseness in the right-hand binding. He worked on that. Upstairs, a queer, detached Martian bass voice intoned itself. 500,000 miles. Prepare your emergency craft with the body of the scientist inside of it. Morgue ship. At 300,000 miles, release the emergency craft. We'll release our mineral payment ship now, giving you a half an hour leeway to pick it up. It contains the exact amount you asked for. Logan's voice next. Good! The scientist is alive, still, and doing well. You're getting a bargain. Brandon's face whitened, bringing out all the hard, scared bones of it, the cheeks and brow and chin bones. He jerked against the binding, and it only jumped the air from his lungs, so he sobbed. Breathing deeply, he lay back. They were taking his child back into space. Lazarus, his second son, whom he had birthed out of space with a metal retriever. They were taking back out and away from him. You can't have your real son, so you take the second best, and you slap him into breathing life, into breathing consciousness. And before he is a day old, they try to tear him away from you again. Brandon fairly yelled against his manacles of wire. Sweat came down his face, and the stuff from his eyes wasn't all sweat. Logan tiptoed down the hard rungs, grinning. "Awake, Sleeping Beauty?" Brandon said nothing. His right hand was loosened. It was wet and loosened, working like a small white animal at his side, slipping from its wired trap. "You can't go ahead with it, Logan." "Why not?" "The Earth Tribunal will find out." "You won't tell them." Logan was doing something across the room. He was the only moving thing in front of 100 cold shelves of sleeping warriors. Brandon gasped, tried to get up, fell back. "How will you fake my death?" "With an injection of sulfocardium. Heart failure. Too much pulse on a too old heart. Simple." Logan turned, and there was a hypodermic in his hand. Brandon lay there. The ship went on and on. The body was upstairs, lying breathing in its metal cradle, mothered by him, and jerked to life by him, and now going away. Brandon managed to say, "Do me a favor." "What?" "Give me the drug now. I don't want to be awake when you send Lazarus out. I don't want that." "Sure." Logan came across the deck, raising the hypodermic. It glittered hard and silver fine and sharp. "One more thing, Logan." "Hurry it up." Only one arm free, one leg able to move slightly. Logan was pressing against the table now, the hypodermic hesitating in his fingers. "This," said Brandon. With one foot, Brandon kicked the teeter-totter control at the base of the board. The board whined, beginning to elevate swiftly. With his free arm instantly pulling the last wave free from the wire, Brandon clutched Logan's screaming head and jammed it down under the table, underneath the descending board. Board and metal base ground together and kept on going 3 inches. Logan screamed only once. The sounds after that were so horrible that Brandon retched. Logan's body slumped and hung, arms slack, hypo dropped, and shattered on the deck. The whole table kept going up and down, up and down. It made Brandon sicker with each movement. The whole room revolved, tipped, spun sickishly. The corpses in their niches seemed to shiver with it. He managed to kick the control into neutral, and the table poised, elevated at the heels, so blood pounded hotly into Brandon's pale face, lightning, coloring it. His heart was pounding furiously, and the chronometer on the hull wall clicked out time passing, and miles with it, and Martians coming so much closer. He fought the remaining wires continuously, cursing, bringing threads and beads of blood from raw wrist, ankles, and hips. Red lights buzzed like insects on the ceiling, spelling out, "Rocket coming, unknown craft, rocket approaching." "Hold on, Lazarus. Don't let them wake you all the way up. Don't let them take you. Better for you to go on slumbering forever." The wire on his left wrist sprang open. It took another 5 minutes to bleed himself out of the ankle wires. The ship spun on, all too quickly. Not looking at Logan's body, Brandon sprang upon the table and with an infinite weariness tried to speed himself up the rungs. His mind raced ahead, but his body could only sludge rung after rung upward into the radio room. The door to the emergency rocket boat was wide, and inside, living quietly, cheeks pink, pulse beating softly in throat, Lazarus lay unthinking, unknowing that his new father had come into his presence. Brandon glanced at his wrist chronometer. Almost time to slam that door, shoving Lazarus out into space to meet the Martians. 5 minutes. He stood there sweating. Then, decided, he put a tight audio beam straight on through to green Earth. Earth. Morgue ship coming home. Morgue ship coming home. Important cargo. Important cargo. Please meet us off the moon. Setting the ship's controls into an automatic mesh, he felt the thundering jets explode to life under him. It was not alone their shaking that pulsed through his body. It was something of himself, too. He was sick. He wanted to get back to Earth so badly he was violently ill with the desire. To forget all the war and death. He could give Lazarus to the enemy and then turn homeward. Yes, he supposed he could do that. But give up the second son where you already have given up one? No, no. Or destroy the body now? Brandon figured the ray gun momentarily. Then he threw it away from him, eyes closed, swaying. No. And if he should try to run away to Earth now, the Martians would pursue and capture him. There was no speed in the morgue ship to outdistance superior craft. Brandon walked unsteadily to the side of the sleeping scientist. He watched him a moment, touching him, looking at him with a lost light in his eyes. Then he began the final preparations, lifting the scientist, going toward the life rocket. The Martians intercepted the emergency life rocket at 5199 CVZ. The morgue ship itself was nowhere visible. It had already completed its arc and was driving back toward Earth. The body of Lazarus was hurried into the hospital cubicle of the Martian rocket. The body was laid upon a table, and immediate efforts were made to bring it out of its centuries of rest. Lazarus reclined, silver uniform belted across the middle with a soft, mouse-gray leather, bronze symbol 51 over the heart. Breathlessly, the Martians crowded in about the body, probing, examining, trying, waiting. The room got very warm. The little purple eyes blinked, hot and tensed. Lazarus was breathing deeply now, sighing into a full, aware life. Lazarus coming from the tomb. After 300 years of avoid death. Armed guards stood on both sides of the medical table, weapons poised, torture mechanisms ready to make Lazarus speak if he refused to tell. The eyes of Lazarus fluttered open. Lazarus, out of the tomb. Lazarus, seeing his companions, iris widening upon itself, forcing shape out of the mist. Seeing the curious blue skulls of anxious Martians collected in a watching crowd about him. Lazarus, living, breathing, ready to speak. Lazarus lifted his head cautiously, parted his lips, wetted them with his tongue, then spoke. His first words were, "What time is it?" It was a simple sentence, and all of the Martians bent forward to catch its significance as one of the Martians replied, 2345. Lazarus nodded and closed his eyes and lay back. Good. He's safe then, by now. He's safe. The Martians closed in, waiting for the next important words of the waking dead. Lazarus kept his eyes closed, and he trembled a little, as if, in spite of himself, he couldn't help it. He said, "My name is Brandon." Then Lazarus laughed. The end of Lazarus, Come Forth by Ray Bradbury.
Outpost on Io by Lee Brackett. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Chris Fong. Outpost on Io by Lee Brackett. Mech Vickers stopped at the brink of the dark round shaft. It was cold, and he was stark naked except for the silver collar welded around his neck. But it was more than cold that made him shiver and clamp his long bony jaw. He didn't know what the shaft was for, or where it led, but he had a sudden feeling that once he went down, he was down for good. The small round metal platform rocked uneasily under his feet. Beyond the railing, as far as Mech Vickers could see to the short curve of Io's horizon, there was mud. Thin, slimy, blue-green mud. The shaft went down under the mud. Mech Vickers looked at it. He licked dry lips, and his gray-green eyes, narrow and hot in his gaunt dark face, flashed a desperate look at the small flyer from which he had just been taken. It bobbed on the heaving mud, mocking him. The 8-foot European guard standing between it and Mech Vickers made a slow weaving motion with his tentacles. Mech Vickers studied the European with the hating eyes of a wolf in a trap. His smooth black body had a dull sheen of red under the Jupiter light. There was no back nor front to him, no face. Only the 4 long rubbery legs, the roundish body, and the tentacles in a waving crown above. Mech Vickers bared white, uneven teeth. His big bony fists clenched. He took one step toward the European. A tentacle flicked out, daintily, and touched the silver collar at the Earthman's throat. Raw electric current, generated in the European's body, struck into him, a shuddering, blinding agony surging down his spine. He stumbled backward, and his foot went off into emptiness. He twisted blindly, catching the opposite side of the shaft, and hung there, groping with his foot for the ladder rungs, cursing in a harsh, toneless voice. The tentacle struck out again, with swift, exquisite skill. 3 times like a red-hot lash across his face, and twice, harder, across his hands. Then it touched the collar again. Mech Vickers retched and let go. He fell jarringly down the ladder, managed to break his fall onto the metal floor below, and crouched there, sick and furious and afraid. The hatch cover clanged down over him like a falling hammer of doom. Mech Vickers dropped into a circular room 30 feet across, floored and walled with metal and badly lighted. The roof was of thick glassite plates. Through them, very clearly, Mech Vickers could see 4 European guards, watching. "They're always there," said the Venusian softly. "You'll come to love them, stranger." There were men standing around the ladder foot, 13 of them, with the Venusian. Earthmen, Martians, Venusians, pale, stark naked, smeared with a blue-green stain. Their muscles stood out sharp on their gaunt bodies, their silver collars a mocking note of richness. Deep, deep inside himself, Mech Vickers shivered. His nostrils wrinkled. There was fear in the room, the smell of it, the shudder of it in the air. Fear that was familiar and accustomed. lying in uneasy sleep, but ready to awake. There were other men, 4 or 5 of them, back in the shadows by the wall bunks. They didn't speak, nor come out. He took a deep breath and said steadily, "I'm Chris McVickers, deep space trader out of Terra. They caught me trying to get through the asteroid lines." Their eyes glistened at him, looking from him to something behind them that he couldn't see. They were waiting, and there was something ghoulish in it. The Venusian said sharply, "Tough luck, McVickers. I'm Loris, late of the Venusian Guard. Introduce yourselves, boys." They did, in jerky, detached voices, their eyes sliding from him to the hidden something. Loris drew a little closer, and one of the Earthmen in the group came toward him. "I'm Pendleton," he said. "The starfish, remember?" McVickers stared at him. The furrows deepened in his craggy face. He said, "My God!" very softly, and not as a curse. "Pendleton!" The man grinned wryly. He was English, the ravaged ghost of the big, ruddy, jovial spaceman McVickers remembered. "Quite a change, eh? Well, perhaps we're lucky, McVickers. We shan't have to see the smash." McVickers' head dropped forward. "Then they saw it coming too?" Loris made a little bitter laugh that was almost a sob. All the desperate, boyish humor was gone from his face, leaving it old and grim. "Who hasn't? I've been here, God knows, an eternity. But even before my ship was taken, we knew it. We can't build spaceships as fast as their jovium destroys them. When they break through the asteroid line..." Pendleton's quiet voice was grave. "Mars is old and tired and torn with famine. Venus is young, but her courage is undisciplined. Her barbarians aren't suited to mechanized warfare. And Earth..." He sighed. "Perhaps if we hadn't fought so much among ourselves..." McVickers said harshly, "It wouldn't have made much difference. When a man has a weapon that causes metal to explode its own atoms, it doesn't make any difference what you stack up against him." He shook his craggy head impatiently. "What is this place? What are you doing here? The Jovies just brought me here and dumped me in without a word of explanation." Pendleton shrugged. "We too. There's a pit below, full of machinery. We work it, but we're not told why. Of course, we do a lot of guessing." "Guessing?" The word rose sharp on the thick hot air. A man burst out of the group and stood swaying with the restless motion of the floor. He was a swart, low-canal Martian. His yellow cat eyes glittered in his hatch face, and his thin, ropey muscles twitched. "I'll tell you what this place is, Earthman. It's a hell. And we're caught in it. Trapped for the rest of our lives." He turned on Pendleton. "It's your fault. We were in a neutral port. We might have been safe. But you had to get back." "Janu!" Pendleton's voice cracked like a whip. The Martian went silent, watching him. There was more than hate in his yellow eyes. Dando, the beginning of the trap madness. McVickers had seen it in men who couldn't stand the confinement of a deep space voyage. The Englishman said quietly, "Janu was my glory hole foreman. He rather holds this against me." The Martian snarled, and then coughed. The cough became a paroxysm. He stumbled away, gray-faced and twitching, bent almost double. "It's the heat," said Loris. "And the damp. Poor devil." McVickers thought of the air of Mars, cold and dry and pure. The floor rocked under him. Eyes, with the queer waiting shine to them, slid furtively to the hidden thing behind the standing men. The hot, wet air lay on his lungs. He sweated. There was a stir of nausea in him, and the light swirled. He shut his jaw hard. He said, "What did Janu mean, the rest of our natural lives? They'll let us go when the war's over, if there's anything left to go to." There was a tight little silence. and then, from the shadows against the wall, there came a brittle, whispering laugh. "The war! They let us go before that!" The group parted. McVickers had a brief glimpse of a huge man crouched in a strange position on the floor. Then he couldn't see anything but the shape that came slowly out into the light. It moved with a stiff, tottering gait, and its naked feet made a dry clicking sound on the metal floor. McVickers' hand closed hard on the ladder behind him. It had been a man, an Earthman. His body was still tall, his features still fine, but there was a film over him, a pale blue-green sheath that glistened dully. He thrust out an arm, with a hand on it like a hand carved in aquamarine. "Touch it," he whispered. McVickers touched it. It was quite hard, and warm only with the heat of the air. McVickers' gray-green eyes met the sunken, sheathed eyes of the Earthman. His body hurt with the effort to control it. "When we can no longer move," the whispering voice said, "they take us up the shaft and throw us over into the mud. That's why you're here, because we were one man short." McVickers put his hand back on the ladder rung. "How long?" "About 3 Earth months." He looked at the blue-green stain that smeared them all. The color of the mud. His hand sweated on the ladder rung. "What is it?" "Something in the mud. A radioactivity, I think. It seems to turn the carbon in human flesh to a crystalline form. You become a living jewel. It's painless, but it's—" He didn't finish. Beads of sweat stood on McVickers' forehead. The men standing watching him smiled a little. There was emotion behind them. Loris and Pendleton stiffened, and their eyes met. McVickers said steadily, "I don't understand. The mud's outside." Loris said, with a queer, hurried urgency, "You will. It's almost time for the other shift." He broke off. Men scattered suddenly, crouching back in a rough circle, grinning with feral nervousness. The room was suddenly quiet. The crouching man had risen. He stood with his huge corded legs wide apart, swaying with the swaying of the floor, his round head sunk between ridges of muscle, studying the Earthman out of pale, flat eyes. Loris put his old, bitter boy's face close to McVickers. His whisper was almost inaudible. "Beric, he's boss here. He's mad. Don't fight him." Section 2. McVickers' gray-green eyes narrowed. He didn't move. Beric breathed in slow, deep sighs. He was a Venusian, a coal swamper from his size and pallor, and the filthy white hair clubbed in his neck. He shimmered, very faintly in the dim light. The first jewel crust was forming across his skin. Knife-sharp and startling across the silence, a round hatch cover in the floor clashed open. Sweat broke cold on McVickers. Men began to come out of the hole, just at the edge of his vision. Naked, dirty men with silver collars. They had been talking, cursing, jostling. The first one saw Beric and stopped, and the silence trickled back down the shaft. It was utterly quiet again, except for the harsh straining of lungs against the hot, wet air and the soft sounds of naked men climbing the ladder. The cords ridged on McVickers' jaw. He shifted his balance slightly, away from the ladder. He could see the faces thrust forward in the dim light, eager, waiting. Shining eyes, shining teeth, cheekbones shining with sweat. Frightened, suffering men, watching another man fear and suffer, and being glad about it. Beric moved forward, slowly. His eyes held a pale glitter, like distant ice, and his lips smiled. "I prayed," he said softly. "I was answered. You, new man, get down on your belly." Loris grinned at Beric, but there was no humor in his eyes. He had drawn a little away from McVickers. He said carelessly, There's no time for that now, Beric. It's our shift. They'll be burning us if we don't go. Beric repeated, Down on your belly. Not looking at Loris. A vein began to throb on McVicker's forehead. He looked slight, almost small against the Venusian's huge bulk. He said quietly, I'm not looking for trouble. Then get down. Sorry, said McVickers. Not today. Pendleton's voice cracked out sharply. Let him alone, Beric. You, men, down the ladder. They're going for the Shakas. McVickers was aware of movement overhead, beyond the glass roof. Men began to drop slowly, reluctantly, down the ladder. There was sweat on Pendleton's forehead, and Loris's face was as gray as his eyes. Beric said hoarsely, Down! Grovel! Then you can go! No! The ladder was beyond Beric. There was no way past him. Loris said, in a swift, harsh whisper, Get down, McVickers! For God's sake, get down, and then come on! McVickers shook his head stubbornly. The giant smiled. There was something horribly wrong about that smile. It was the smile of a man in agony when he feels the anesthetic taking hold, peaceful and happy. He struck out, startlingly fast for such a big man. McVickers shrank aside. The fist grazed past his head, tearing his ear. He crouched and went in, trying for a fast body blow and a sidestep. He'd forgotten the glimmering sheath. His fist struck Beric on the mark, and it was like striking glass that didn't shatter. The pain shot up his arm, numbing, slowing, sickening. Blood spattered out from his knuckles. Beric's right swept in, across the side of his head. McVickers went down, on his right side. Beric put a foot in the small of his back. Down, he said. Grovel! McVickers twisted under the foot, snarling. He brought up his own feet, viciously, with all his strength. The pain of impact made him whimper, but Beric staggered back, thrown off balance. There was no sign of hurt in his face. He stood there, looking down at McVickers. Suddenly, shockingly, he was crying. He made no sound. He didn't move. But the tears ran out of his eyes. A deep, slow shudder shook McVickers. He said softly, There's no pain, is there? Beric didn't speak. The tears glistened over the faint, hard film on his cheeks. McVickers got up slowly. The furrows were deep and harsh in his face, and his lips were white. Loris pulled at him. Somewhere Pendleton's voice was yelling, Hurry! Hurry, please! The guards were doing something overhead. There was a faint crackling sound, a flicker of sparks in a circle around the top of the wall. Shivering, tingling pain swept through McVickers from the silver collar at his throat. Men began to whisper and curse. Loris clawed at him, shoved him down the ladder, kicked his face to make him hurry. The pain abated. McVickers looked up. The great corded legs of Beric were coming down, the soles of his feet making a faint, hard sound on the rungs. The hatch closed overhead. The voice of the dying Earthman came dry and soft over his shoulder. Here's where you'll work until you die. How do you like it? McVickers turned, scowling. It was hot. The room above was cool by comparison. The air was thick and sluggish with the reek of heated oil and metal. It was a big space, running clear to the curving wall. But the effect was of stifling, cramped confinement. Machinery crammed the place, roaring and hissing and clattering, running in a circuit from huge intake pumps through meaningless bulking shapes to a forced air outlet, with oil pumps between them. The pumps brought mud into a broad sluice, and the blue-green stain of it was everywhere. There were 2 glassite control boxes high on the walls, each with a black tentacled European. About 5 feet overhead was a system of metal catwalks giving complete coverage of the floor area. There were Europans on the walks, too, 8 of them, patrolling steadily. Their sleek, featureless bodies were safe from contact with the mud. They carried heavy plastic tubes in their tentacles, and there were heavy-duty shockers mounted at every intersection. McVickers grinned dourly. Trustful lot. Very. Pendleton nudged him over toward a drive motor attached to some kind of a centrifugal separator. Loris and the blue-sheathed Earthman followed, with Byrrc coming slowly behind him. McVickers said, "What's all this for?" Pendleton shook his head. "We don't know, but we have an idea that jovium comes from the mud." Jovium? McVickers' gray-green eyes began to grow hot. The stuff that's winning this war for them? The metal destroyer? We're not sure, of course. Pendleton's infinitely weary eyes turned across the stretch of greasy metal deck to the end of the circuit. But look there, what does that suggest to you? The huge pipe of the forced air ejector ran along the deck there behind a screen of heavy metal mesh. Just above it, enclosed behind 3 thicknesses of glassite, was a duct leading upward. The duct, from the inordinate size of its supports and its color, was pure lead. Lead pipe, lead armor, radiations that changed living men into half-living diamonds. Nobody knew what jovium was or where it came from. Only it did. But scientists on the 3 besieged worlds thought it was probably an isotope of some powerful radioactive metal, perhaps uranium, capable of setting up a violent progressive breakdown in metallic atoms. If, said McVickers softly, the pipe were lined with plastic, blue mud. I've traded through these moons, and the only other deposit of that mud is a saucepan full of J11. This must be their only source. Loris shoved an oil can at him. What difference does it make? He said savagely. McVickers took the can without seeing it. They store it up there, then, in the inner space between the inner wall and the outer. If somebody could get up there and set the stuff off... Pendleton's mouth twisted. Can you see any way? He looked. Guards and shockers, charged ladders and metal screens. No weapons, no place to conceal them anyway. He said doggedly, "But if someone could escape and get word back, this contraption is a potential bomb big enough to blow Io out of space. The experts think it only takes a fraction of a gram of the pure stuff to power a disintegrator shell." There was a pulse beating hard under his jaw, and his gray-green eyes were bright. Loris said, "Escape." He said it as though it were the most infinitely beautiful word in existence, and as though it burned his mouth. "Escape," whispered the man with the shimmering deadly sheath of aquamarine. "There is no escape but this." McVickers said, into the silence that followed, "I'm going to try. One thing or the other, I'm going to try." Pendleton's incredibly tired eyes looked at the livid burns on McVickers' face. "It's been tried, and it's no use." Byrrc moved suddenly out of his queer, dazed stillness. He looked up and made a hoarse sound in his throat. McVickers caught a flicker of motion overhead, but he didn't pay attention to it. He went on, speaking quietly in a flat, level voice. "There's a war on. We're all in it. Soldiers, civilians, and kings, the big fellows and the little ones. When I got my master's ticket, they told me a man's duty wasn't done until his ship was cradled or he was dead. My ship's gone, but I haven't died yet." Pendleton's broad, gaunt shoulders drooped. He turned his head away. Loris's face was a death mask carved from gray bone. He said, almost inaudibly, "Shut up, damn you, shut up!" The movement was closer overhead, ominously close. The men scattered across the pit had stopped working, watching McVickers with glistening, burning eyes across hot, oil-filmed metal. McVickers said harshly, "I know what's wrong with you. You were broken before you came, thinking the smash was coming and it was no use." Pendleton whispered, "You don't know the things they do to you." Stiff and dry, out of the Earthman's aquamarine mask, came the words, "You'll learn. There's no hope, McVickers, and the men have all they can bear without pain. If you bring them more suffering, McVickers, they'll kill you." Heat, oil and reeking metal, and white stiff faces filmed with sweat. Eyes shining, hot and glittering with fear. Rocking floor and sucking pumps and a clutching nausea in his belly. Byrrc standing straight and still, watching him, watching. Everybody watching. McVickers put his hand flat on the engine housing beside him. "There's more to it than duty," he said softly, and smiled, without humor, the vertical lines deep in his cheeks. His gaunt Celtic head had a grim beauty. His voice rang clear across the roar of the machines. "I'm Christopher Rory McVickers. I'm the most important thing in the universe, and if I have to give my life, it'll not be without return on the value of it." Janu the Martian, away on the other side of the pit, made a shrill wailing cry. Loris and Pendleton flinched away like dogs afraid of the whip, looking upward. McVickers glimpsed a dark tentacled shape on the catwalk above, just before the shattering electricity coursed through him. He screamed, once, and then Byrrc moved. He struck Loris and Pendleton and the blue-sheathed Earthman out of the way like children. His left leg took McVickers behind the knees in the same instant that his right hand pushed McVickers' face. McVickers fell heavily on his back, screaming at the contact of the metal floor. Then Byrrc sprawled over him, shielding his body with the bulk of his own. The awful, shocking pain was lessened. Lying there, looking up into Byrrc's pale eyes, McVickers made his twitching lips say, "Why?" Byrrc smiled. "The current doesn't hurt much anymore, and I want you for myself. To break." McVickers drew a deep, shuddering breath and smiled back, the lines deep in his lean cheeks. He had no clear memories of that shift. Heat and motion and strangling air, and Janu coughing with a terrible, steady rhythm, his own hands trying to guide the oil can. Toward the end of the time he fainted, and it was Byrrc who carried him up the ladder. He had no way of knowing how long after that he came to. There was no sense in that little hell. The first thing he noticed, with the hair-trigger senses of a man trained to ships, that the motion of the room was different. He sat up straight on the bunk where Byrrc had laid him. "The tidal wave," he said over a quick stab of fear. "What? We ride it out," said Loris bitterly. "We always have." McVickers knew the Jovian moons pretty well. Remembering the tremendous tides and winds caused by the gravitational pull of Jupiter, he shuddered. There was no solid earth on Io, nothing but mud. And the extraction plant, from the feel of it, was a hollow bell sunk under it, perfectly free. It had to be free. No mooring cable made could stand the pull of a Jupiter tide. "One thing about it," said Pendleton with quiet viciousness, "it makes the bloody Jovies seasick." Janu the Martian made a cracked, harsh laugh. "So they keep a weak current on us all the time." His hatchet face was drawn, his yellow cat eyes lambent in the dim light. The men sprawled on their bunks, not talking much. Byrrc sat on the end of his, watching McVickers with his pale, still eyes. There was a tightness in the room. It was coming. They were going to break him now, before he hurt them. Break him or kill him. McVickers wiped the sweat from his face and said, "I'm thirsty." Pendleton pointed to a thing like a horse trough against the bulkhead. His eyes were tired and very sad. Loris was scowling at his stained and faintly filmed feet. There wasn't much water in the trough. What there was brackish and greasy. McVickers drank and splashed some on his face and body. He saw that he was already stained with the mud. It wouldn't wash off. The dying Earthman whispered, "There is food also." McVickers looked at the basket of spongy synthetic food and shook his head. The floor dipped and swung. There was a frightening, playful violence about it, like the first soft taps of a tiger's paw. Loris looked up at the glass roof with the black shapes beyond. "They get the pure air," he said. "Our ventilator pipes are only a few inches wide, lest we crawl up through them." Pendleton said, rather loudly, "The swine breathe through the skin, you know. All the sense organs, sight and hearing." "Shut up!" snarled Janu. "Stop talking for time!" The sprawled men on the bunks drew themselves slowly tight, breathing hard and deep in anticipation. And Byrrec rose. McVickers faced them, Byrrec and the rest. There was no lift in his heart. He was cold and sodden, like a shooted ox watching the poleaxe fall. He said with a bitter, savage quiet, "You're a lot of bloody cowards. You, Byrrec. You're scared of the death creeping over you, and the only way you can forget the fear is to make someone else suffer. It's the same with all of you. You have to trample me down to your level, break me for the sake of your souls as much as your bodies." He looked at the numbers of them, at Byrrec's huge impervious bulk and his great fists. He touched his silver collar, remembering the agony of the shock through it. "And I will break. You know that. Damn you!" He gave back 3 paces and set his feet. "All right. Come on, Byrrec. Let's get it over with." The Venusian came toward him across the heaving floor. Loris still looked at his feet, and Pendleton's eyes were agonized. McVickers wiped his hands across his buttocks. The palms were filmed and slick with oil from the can he had handled. There was no use to fight. Byrrec was twice his size, and he couldn't be hurt anyway. The diamond sheath even screened off the worst of the electric current, being a non-conductor. That gave the dying men an advantage. But even if they had spirit enough left by that time to try anything, the hatches were still locked tight by air pressure, and the sheer numbers of their suffering mates would pull them down. Also, the Jovies were as strong as 4 men. Non-conductor, sheathed skin, Byrrec's shoulders tensing for the first blow, sweat trying to break through the film of oil on his palms, the slippery feel of his hands as he clenched them. Byrrec's fist lashed out. McVickers dodged under it, looking for an opening, dreading the useless agony of impact. The bell lurched wildly. A guard moved abruptly overhead. The motion caught McVickers' eye. Something screamed sharply in his head, Pendleton's voice, saying, "They breathe through the skin. All their sense organs." He sensed rather than saw Byrrec's fist coming. He twisted, enough to take the worst of it on his shoulder. It knocked him halfway across the deck, and then the current came on. It was weak, but it made him jerk and twitch. He scrambled up on the pitching deck and started to speak. Byrrec was coming again, leisurely, smiling. Then, quite suddenly, the hatch cover clanged open, signaling the change of the shifts. McVickers stood still for a second. Then he laughed, a queer little chuckle, and made a rush for the hatch. Section 3. He went down it with Byrrec's hand brushing past his head. Men yelled and cursed. He trampled on them ruthlessly. The ones lower down fell off the ladder to avoid his feet. There was a clamor up above. Hands grabbed at him. He lashed out, kicking and butting. His rush carried him through and out across the pit, toward the space between the endpoints of the horseshoe circuit. He slowed down then. The guards had noticed the scuffle, but it seemed to be only the shift changing, and McVickers looked like a man going peacefully for oil. Peacefully. The blood thundered in his head, he was cold, and the skin of his back crawled. Men shoved and swore back by the ladder. He went on, not too fast, fighting the electric shiver in his brain. Fuel and lubricating oils were brought up, presumably from tanks in a still lower level, by big pressure pumps. All 3 sets of pumps, intake, outlet, and oil, worked off the same compressed air unit. He set the lubricating oil pump going and rattled cans into place. The men of his shift were straggling out from the ladder, twitching from the light current, scared, angry, but uncertain. There was a subtle change in the attitude of the European guards. Their movements were sluggish, faintly uncertain. McVickers grinned viciously. Seasick. They'd be sicker if they didn't get him too soon. The surging pitch of the bell was getting worse. The tide was rising, and the mud was playing with the bell, like a child throwing a ball. Nausea began to clutch at McVickers' stomach. The pressure gauge on the pump was rising. He let it rise, praying, his gray-green eyes hot and bright. Going with the motion of the deck, he sprawled over against the intake pumps. He spun the wheel on the pressure control as far as it would go. A light wrench, chained so that it could not be thrown, lay at his feet. He picked it up, his hand jerking and tingling, and began to work at the air pipe coupling. Hands gripped his shoulder suddenly, slewing him around. The yellow eyes of Janu the Martian glared into his. "What are you doing here, Earthman? This is my station!" Then he saw the pressure gauge. He let out a keening wail, cut short by the crunch of McVickers' fist on his mouth. McVickers whirled and swung the wrench. The loose coupling gave. Air burst whistling from the pipe, and the rhythm of the pumps began to break. But Janu's cry had done it. Men were pelting toward him, and the guards were closing in overhead. McVickers flung himself bodily on the short hose of the oil pump. Burrick, Loris, Pendleton, the dying Earthman, the hard faces behind them. The guards were manning the shockers. Up in the control boxes, black tentacles were flashing across banks of switches. He had to work fast, before they cut the pressure. Burrick was ahead of the others, very close. McVickers gave him the oil stream full in the face. It blinded him. Then the nearest shocker came on, focused expertly on McVickers. He shut his teeth hard, whimpering through them, and turned the hard forced stream of oil into the hoarsely shrieking blast from the open pipe. Oil sprayed up in a heavy, blinding fog. Burning, shuddering agony shook McVickers, but he held his hose, his feet braced wide, praying to stand up long enough. The catwalks were hidden in the oily mist. The ventilating blowers caught it, thrusting it across the whole space. McVickers yelled through it, his voice hardly recognizable as human. "You! Out there! All of you! This is your chance! Are you going to take it?" Something fell, close by, with a heavy thrashing thud. Something black and tentacled and writhing, covered with a dull film. McVickers laughed, and the laughter was less human than the voice. "Cowards!" he cried. "All right, I'll do it myself!" Somebody yelled, "They're dying! Look!" There was another heavy thud. The hot, strangling fog roiled with hidden motion. McVickers gasped and retched and shuddered helplessly. He was going to drop the hose in a minute. He was going to fall down and scream. If they stepped the power up one more notch, he was going to fall down and die. Only they were dying too, and forgetting about power. It seemed a static eternity to McVickers, but it had all happened in the space of a dozen heartbeats. There were yells and shouts, and a sort of animal tumult in the thick haze. Suddenly, Pendleton's voice rang out of it. "McVickers, I'm with you, man! You others, listen! He's giving us the break we needed! Don't let him down!" and Janu screamed. No! He's killed the guards, but there are more. They'll fry us from the control boxes if we help him. The pressure was dropping in the pipe as the power cut out. There was a last hiss, a spurt of oily spray, then silence. McVickers dropped the hose. Janu's voice went on, sharp and harsh with fear. They'll fry us, I'll tell you. We'll lie here and jerk and scream until we're crazy. I'm going to die, I know it, but I won't go through that for nothing. I'm going back by the ladder and pray they won't notice me. More sounds, more tumult. Men suddenly torn between hope and abject terror. McVickers said warily in the fog, If you help me, we can win the war for our worlds. Destroy this bell. Start the Jovium working. Destroy Io. Victory for us. And if you don't, I hope you fry here and in hell afterward. They wavered. McVickers could hear their painful breathing, ragged with the emotion in them. Some of them started toward the sound of Pendleton's voice. Janu made an eerie wailing sound, like a hurt cat, and went for him. McVickers started to help, but the current froze him to the metal floor. He strained, feeling his nerves, his brain dissolving in a shuddering fire. He knew why the others had broken so soon. The current did things to you, inside. He couldn't see what was happening. The heavy mist choked his eyes, his throat, his nostrils. The pitching of the bell was a nightmare thing. Men thrashed and struggled and cursed. So he had killed the guards. So what? There were still the control boxes. If they didn't rush them before the oil settled, they wouldn't have a chance. Why not give up? Let himself dissolve in the blackness he was fighting off. A great pale shape came striding through the mist toward him. Byrrc. This was it, then. Well, he'd had his moment of fun. His fist came up in a bland, instinctive gesture. Byrrc laughed. The current made him jerk only a little, in his thin diamond sheath. He bunched his shoulders and reached out. McVickers felt himself ripped clear off the floor. In a second he was out of focus of the shocker, and the pain was gone. He came nearest to fainting then, but Byrrc's huge hand shook him by the hair, and Byrrc's voice shouted, Tell him, little man. Tell him it's better to die quick, now, than go mad with fear. Come on, yelled Pendleton. Here's our chance to show we're still men. Hurry up, you sons. McVickers looked at the Venusian's face. The terrible frozen fear was gone from his eyes. He wanted to die, now, quickly, fighting for vengeance. The gray pinched face of Loris loomed abruptly out of the fog. It was suddenly young again, and the smile was genuine. He said, Let's teach him to mind, Byrrc. McVickers, He shook his head, looking away. You know. I know. Hurry up with it. Pendleton's voice burst out of the fog, triumphantly. Janu crouched on the heaving deck, bleeding and whimpering. McVickers yelled, Who's with me? We're going to take the control boxes. Who wants to be a hero? Byrrc laughed and threw him bodily up onto the catwalk overhead. Most of the men came forward then. The 3 or 4 that were left looked at the Martian and followed. Byrrc helped them up onto the catwalk. They were moving now. It took only a few seconds. McVickers divided them into 2 groups. You men that are sheathed to go first, to help block the charge. It'll be your job to take the Jovies out of the way. Quick, before this fog settles enough so they can see to focus on us. They split up, running along the walk that connected with the control boxes, hurtling the bodies of Jovians suffocated in oil. Presently, the glassite door loomed before them. Byrrc and the dying Earthman led McVickers' party. The Venusian wrenched open the door, and McVickers felt his heart stop. There were 3 Europans instead of 1. The guards had come down from above. Get them out here, he said. Out onto the oil. A wave of shuddering agony tossed through him. The Jovies were using their powerful hand tubes. Only the glassite walls partially protected them. The fog began to whip past them. He groaned, thinking that it was going. And then he put his head in his hands and wept with incredulous, thankful joy. The oily mist was being sucked into the box by powerful ventilators. McVickers remembered Loris saying, "They get the pure air. Our ventilator tubes are only a few inches wide." He laughed. The bell swooped sickeningly. Somewhere off in the fog, he heard screams and shouts, and Pendleton's voice roaring triumph. He thought, "We never could have done it if the tide hadn't come and made the Jovies seasick." He laughed again. It tickled him that seasickness should lose a war. Section 4. They went in and up the ladders, into the sealed storage space next the convict quarters. There was a huge cylinder of lead suspended over the mouth of the duct from the extractor. "They must collect the stuff when they bring oil and supplies," said Loris. "Well, McVickers, what happens to us now?" McVickers looked at them, the lines deep in his face. "We all agree, don't we, that there's no hope of escape? If we wait until the next supply ship comes and try to take it, we lose the chance of doing, well, call it our duty if you want to. That is, to wreck their only source of the explosive that's winning the war for them. I think you know," he added, "what our chances of taking that ship would be, without offensive weapons or any protection against theirs. It would only mean a return to this slavery, if they don't kill us all outright." His gray-green eyes were somber, deeply bright. "It comes down to this. Shall we turn this bell into a disintegrator bomb, setting the Jovium free to destroy its own and every other metallic atom in the mud? Or shall we gamble our worlds on the slim chance of saving our necks?" Loris looked down at the deck and said softly, "Why should we worry about our necks, McVickers? You've saved our souls." "Agreed, then, all you men?" Beric looked them over. "The man who refuses will have no neck to save," he said. There was no disagreement. McVickers turned to the leaden cylinder. It was fixed to the duct by a plastic-lined, lead-sheathed collar. There was an arrangement whereby a plug could be driven into the open mouth of the filled cylinder without spilling a grain of the stuff. McVickers reached up and loosed the apparatus that held the cylinder upright. It fell over with a shattering crash. A palely glowing powder puffed out, settling over the adjacent metal. McVickers had 1 second of terror. An eerie bluish light grew, throwing faces into strong relief. Pendleton praying silently, Loris smiling. The blue-sheathed Earthman with closed eyes, his face a mask of peace. The others facing a death they understood and welcomed. All of them thinking of 3 little worlds that could go on living their own lives. Beric grinned at him. "I'm glad you ran away," he whispered. McVickers grinned back. End of Outpost on EO by Lee Brackett.
Defense Mech by Ray Bradbury. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Ben Tucker. Defense Mech by Ray Bradbury. Oh my God. Do you realize how far from Earth we are? Do you really think about it? It's enough to scare the guts from a man. Hold me up. Do something. Get me sedatives or hold my hand or run call Mama. 1,000,000 cold miles up. See all the flickering stars? Look at my hands tremble. Feel my heart whirling like a hot pinwheel. The captain comes toward me, a stunned expression on his small, tight face. He takes my arm, looking into my eyes. "Hello, Captain. I'm sick, if that's what you want to know. I've a right to be scared. Just look at all that space. Standing here a moment ago, I stared down at Earth so round and cloud-covered and asleep on a mat of stars, and my brain tore loose and screamed, Man, how'd you get in a mess like this in a rocket 1,000,000 miles past the moon, shooting for Mars with a crew of 14 others? I can hardly stand up. My knees, my hands, my heart are shaking apart. Hold me up, sir. What are hysterics like? The captain unprongs the interdeck audio and speaks swiftly, scowling into it. I hope he's phoning the psychiatrist. I need something. Oh, damn it. The psychiatrist and the captain's voices murmur and blend, with here and there an emphasis, a toss of head, a gesture. Young Holloway here's on a fear jag, Doctor. Can you help him? I'll try. Good man, Holloway is. Imagine you'll need him and his muscles when we land. With the crew as small as it is, every man's worth his weight in uranium. He's got to be cured. The psychiatrist shakes his head. Might have to squirt him full of drugs to keep him quiet the rest of the expedition. The captain explodes, saying that is impossible. Blood drums in my head. The doctor moves closer, smelling clean, sharp, and white. Please understand, Captain. This man is definitely psychotic about going home. His talk is almost a reversion to childhood. I can't refuse his demands, and his fear seems too deeply based for reasoning. However, I think I have an idea. Holloway? Yes, sir. Help me, Doctor. I want to go home. I want to see popcorn exploding into a buttered avalanche inside a glass cube. I want to roller skate. I want to climb into the old, cool, wet ice wagon and go chick, chick, chick on the ice with a sharp pick. I want to take long, sweating hikes in the country, see big brick buildings and bright-faced people, fight the old gang, anything but this. Awful. The psychiatrist rubs his chin. All right, son. You can go back to Earth now, tonight. Again, the captain explodes. You can't tell him that. We're landing on Mars today. The psychiatrist pats down the captain patiently. Please, Captain. Well, Holloway, back to New York for you. How does it sound? I'm not so scared now. We're going down on the moving ladder, and here is the psychiatrist's cubicle. He's pouring lights into my eyes. They revolve like stars on a disc. Lots of strange machines around. Attachments to my head, my ears. Sleepy. Oh, so sleepy, like under warm water. Being pushed around, laved, washed, quiet. Oh gosh, sleepy. Listen to me, Holloway. Sleepy, doctor's talking. Very soft, like feathers, soft. You're going to land on Earth. No matter what they tell you, you're landing on Earth. No matter what happens, you'll be on Earth. Everything you see and do will be like on Earth. Remember that. Remember that. You won't be afraid because you'll be on Earth. Remember that. Over and over, you'll land on Earth in an hour. Home again, no matter what anyone says. Oh, yes, sir, home again, sleepy, home again, drifting, sleeping. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you from the bottom of my drowsy, sleepy soul. Yes, sir, sleepy, drifting. I'm awake. Hey, everybody, come look. Here comes Earth. Right at us like a green moss ball off a bat, coming at us on a curve.
Check stations. Mars landing. Get in the boulders. Test atmosphere.
Get into your, what did he say? Your baseball uniform, Holloway. Your baseball uniform. Yes, sir. My baseball uniform. Where'd I put it? Over here. Head into, legs into, feet into it. There. Ha! This is great. Pitcher in here, old boy. Smack! Yow! Yes, sir, it's over in that metal locker. I'll take it out. Head, arms, legs into it. I'm dressed. Baseball uniform. Ha! This is great. Pitcher in here, old boy. Smack! Yow!
Adjust boulder helmets. Check oxygen.
What? Put on your catcher's mitt, Holloway. Oh! The mask slides down over my face, like that. The captain comes rushing up. Eyes, hot, green, and angry. Doctor, what's this infernal nonsense? You wanted Holloway able to do his work, didn't you, Captain? Yes, but what in hell have you done to him? Strange. As they talk, I hear their words flow over my head like a wave dashed on a sea stone. But the words drain off, leaving no imprint. As soon as some words invade my head, something eats and digests them, and I think the words are something else entirely. The psychiatrist nods at me. I couldn't change his basic desire. Given time, yes, a period of months, I could have, but you need him now. So against all the known ethics of my profession, which say one must never lie to a patient, I've followed along in his own thought channel. I didn't dare frustrate him. He wants to go home, so I let him. I've given him a fantasy. I've set up a protective defense mechanism in his mind that refuses to believe certain realities that evaluate all things from its own desire for security and home. His mind will automatically block any thought or image that endangers that security. The captain stares wildly. Then Holloway's insane. Would you have him mad with fear, or able to work on Mars hindered by only a slight touched condition? Coddle him and he'll do fine. Just remember, we're landing on Earth, not Mars. Earth, Mars, you'll have me raving next. The doctor and the captain certainly talk weirdly. Who cares? Here comes Earth. Green, expanding like a moist cabbage underfoot.
Mars landing. Airlock opened. Use vulgar oxygen.
Here we go, gang. Last one out is a pink chimpanzee. Holloway, come back, you damn fool. You'll kill yourself. Feel the good, sweet Earth. Home again. Praise the Lord. Let's dance. Sing off key. Laugh. Oh, boy. In the door of the house stands the captain, his face red and wrinkled, waving his fists. Holloway, come back! Look behind you, you fool! I whirl about and cry out happily. Shep! Shep, old dog! He comes running to meet me. Long fur, shining amber in the sunshine, barking. Shep, I haven't seen you in years, good old pooch. Come here, Shep, let me pet you. The captain shrieks. Don't pet it! It looks like a carnivorous Martian worm! Man, the jaws on that thing! Holloway, use your knife! Shep snarls and shows his teeth. Shep, what's wrong? That's no way to greet me. Come on, Shep. Hey! I pull back my fingers as his swift jaws snap. Shep circles me swiftly. You haven't rabies, have you, Shep? He darts in, snatches my ankle with strong, locking, white teeth. Lord, Shep, you're crazy! I can't let this go on. You used to be such a fine, beautiful dog. Remember all the hikes we took into the lazy corn country by the red barns and deep wells? Shep clenches tight my ankle. I'll give him one more chance. Shep, let go. Where did this long knife come from in my hand like magic? Sorry to do this, Shep, but... There! Shep screams, thrashing, screams again. My arm pumps up and down. My gloves are freckled with blood flakes. Don't scream, Shep. I said I was sorry, didn't I? Get out there, you men, and bury that beast immediately. I glare at the captain. Don't talk that way about Shep. Captain stares at my ankle. Sorry, Holloway. I meant bury that dog, you men. Give him full honors. You were lucky, son. Another second and those knife teeth had bored through your ankle cuff metal. I don't know what he means. I'm wearing sneakers, sir. Oh, yeah, so you are, yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Holloway. I know how you must feel about Shep. He was a fine dog. I think about it a moment, and my eyes fill up. What? There'll be a picnic and a hike, the captain says. 3 hours now the boys have carried luggage from the metal house. The way they talk, this'll be some picnic. Some seem afraid, but who worries about copperheads and water moccasins and crawfish? Not me, no sir, not me. Gus Bartz, sweating beside me on some apparatus, squints at me. What's eating you, Holloway? I smile. Me? Nothing, why? You would not act with the Martian worm. What are you talking about? What worm? Captain interrupts nervously. Bartz, lay off Holloway. The doctor will explain why. Ask him. Bartz goes away, scratching his head. The captain pats my shoulder. You're our strong-arm man, Holloway. You've got muscles from working on the rocket engines. So keep alert today, eh? On your hike to look over the territory, keep your BB gun ready. Beavers, do you think, sir? The captain swallows hard and blinks. Oh, beavers. Yeah, beavers. Sure, beavers. Maybe mountain lions and Indians, too, I hear. Never can tell. Be careful. Mountain lions and Indians in New York in this day and age? Oh, sir. Let it go. Keep alert anyhow. Smoke? I don't smoke, sir. A strong mind and a healthy body. You know the old rule. The old rule. Oh, yes. The old rule. Only joking. I don't want to smoke anyway. Like hell. What was that last, sir? Nothing, Holloway. Carry on, carry on. I help the others work now. Are we taking the yellow streetcar to the edge of town, Gus? We're using propulsion belts, skimming low over the Dead Seas. How's that again, Gus? I said we're taking the yellow streetcar to the end of the line, yeah. We're ready. Everyone's packed, spreading out. We're going in groups of 4, down Main Street, past the pie factory, over the bridge, through the tunnel, past the circus grounds, and we'll rendezvous, says the captain, at a place he points to on a queer, disjointed map. Whoosh, we're off. I forgot to pay my fare. That's okay, I paid it. Thanks, Captain. We're really traveling. The cypresses and the maples flash by. Ka-hoom! I wouldn't admit this to anyone but you, sir, but momentarily there, I didn't see this streetcar. Suddenly, we moved in empty space, nothing supporting us. And I didn't see any car. But now I see it, sir. The captain gazes at me at a 9-day miracle. You do, eh? Yes, sir. I clutch upward. Here's the strap. I'm holding it. You look pretty funny sliding through the air with your hand up like that, Holloway. How's that, sir? Why are the others laughing at me, sir? Nothing, son, nothing. Just happy, that's all. Ding, 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 ding. Canal Street in Washington. Ding, ding, whoosh. This is real traveling. Funny, though, the captain and his men keep moving, changing seats, never stay seated. It's a long streetcar. I'm way in back now. They're out front. By the large brown house on the next corner stands a popcorn wagon, yellow and red and blue. I can taste the popcorn in my mind. It's been a long time since I've eaten some. If I ask the captain's permission to stop and buy a bag, he'll refuse. I'll just sneak off the car at the next stop. I can get back on the next car and catch up with the gang later. How do you stop this car? My fingers fumble with my baseball outfit, doing something I don't want to know about. The car is stopping. Why is that? Popcorn is more important. I'm off the car, walking. Here's the popcorn machine with a man behind it, fussing with little silver metal knobs. Lock, car is... Tony? Tony Bambino, what are you doing here? Clack. It can't be, but it is. Tony, who died 10 long years ago when I was a freckled kid, alive and selling popcorn again. Oh, Tony, it's good to see you. His black mustache is so waxed, so shining, his dark hair like burnt oily shavings, his dark, shining, happy eyes, his smiling red cheeks. He shimmers in my eyes like a cold rain. Tony, let me shake your hand. Give me a bag of popcorn, senor. Clack, clack, clack. Spot, clack, clack. The captain didn't see you, Tony. You were hidden so well, only I saw you. Just a moment while I searched for my nickel. Whew. I'm dizzy. It's very hot. My head spins like a leaf on a storm wind. Let me hold on to your wagon, Tony. Quick. I'm shivering, and I've got sharp needle head pains. I'm running a temperature. I feel as if I have a torch hung flaming in my head. Hotter. Pardon me for criticizing you, Tony, but I think it's your popper turned up too high. Your face looks afraid, contorted, and your hands move so rapidly. Why? Can't you shut it off? I'm hot. Everything melts. My knees sag. Warmer still. You better turn that thing off. I can't take it anymore. I can't find my nickel anyhow. Please snap it off, Tony. I'm sick. My uniform glows orange. I'll take fire. Here, I'll turn it off for you, Tony. You hit me. Stop hitting me. Stop clicking those knobs. It's hot, I tell you. Stop or I'll... Tony, where are you? Gone. Where did that purple flame shoot from? That loud blast, what was it? The flame seemed to stream from my hand out of my scout flashlight. Purple flame eating. I smell a sharp, bitter odor like hamburger fried over long. I feel better now. cool as winter, but like a fly buzzing in my ears, a voice comes, faint, far off. Holloway! Damn it! Holloway, where are you? Captain, it's his voice, sizzling. I don't see you, sir. Holloway, we're on the Dead Sea bottom near an ancient Martian city. Oh, never mind, damn it. If you hear me, press your Boy Scout badge and yell. I press the badge intensely, sweating. Hey, Captain! Holloway, Glory, you're not dead. Where are you? I stopped for popcorn, sir. I can't see you. How do I hear you? It's an echo. Let it go. If you're okay, grab the next streetcar. That's very opportune, because here comes a big red streetcar now, around the corner of the drugstore. What? Yes, sir, and it's chock full of people. I'll climb aboard. Wait a minute. Hold on. Murder. What kind of people, damn it? It's the West Side Gang, sure. The whole bunch of tough kids. West Side Gang. Hell, those are Martians. Get the hell out of there. Transfer to another car. Take the subway. Take the elevated. Too late. The car stopped. I'll have to get on. The conductor looks impatient. Impatient, he says. You'll be massacred. Uh-oh. Everybody's climbing from the streetcar, looking angry at me. Kelly and Grogan and Tompkins and the others. I guess there'll be a fight. The captain's voice stabs my ears, but I don't see him anywhere. Use your gun, your blaster. Hell, use your slingshot or throw spitballs or whatever the devil you imagine you got holstered there. But use it. Come on, man, about face and back. I'm outnumbered. I bet they'll gang me and give me the bumps. I bet they'll truss me to a maple tree, and tickle me. I bet they'll ink tattoo their initials on my forehead. Mother won't like this. Captain's voice opens up louder, driving nearer. And Papa ain't happy. Get out of there, Holloway. They're hitting me, sir. We're battling. Keep it up, Holloway. I knocked one down, sir, with an uppercut. I'm knocking another one down now. Here goes the third. Someone's grabbed my ankle. I'll kick him. There. I'm stumbling, falling. Lights in my eyes, purple ones. Big lightning bolts sizzling the air. 3 of them vanished just like that. I think they fell down a manhole. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt them bad. They stole my flashlight. Get it back, Holloway. We're coming. Get your flash and use it. That's silly. Silly, he says. Silly. I got my flashlight back. Broken. No good. We're wrestling. There are so many of them. I'm weak. They're climbing all over me, hitting. It's not fair. I'm falling down, kicking, screaming. Up speed, men. Full power. They're binding me up. I can't move. They're rushing me into the streetcar now. Now I won't be able to go on that hike, and I planned on it so hard, too. Here we are, Holloway. Blast 'em, men. Oh, my Lord, look at the horrible faces on those creatures. Gugh. Watch out, Captain. They'll get you, too, and the others. Ah! Somebody struck me on the back of my head. Darkness. Dark. Rock my baby on the treetop when the wind blows. Okay, Holloway, any time. Just any old time you want to come to. Dark. A voice talking? Dark as a whale's insides. Ouch, my head. Flat on my back, I can feel rocks under me. Good morning, dear Mr. Holloway. That you, Captain, over in that dark corner? It ain't the President of the United States. Where's this cave? Suppose you tell us. You got us into this mess with your eternally blasted popcorn. Why'd you get off the streetcar? Did the West Side Gang truss us up like this, Captain? West Side Gang. Ugh. Those faces. Those inhuman, weird, unsavory, and horrible faces. All loose-fleshed and gangrenous. Aliens. The whole rotting clutch of them. What a funny way to talk. Listen, you parboiled idiot. In about an hour, we're going to be fried, gutted, iced, killed, slaughtered, murdered. We will be ipso facto dead. Your friends are whipping up a little bloodletting jamboree. Can't I shove it through your thick skull? We're on Mars, about to be sliced and hammered by a lousy bunch of Martians.
Captain, sir?
Yes, Berman.
The cave door is opening, sir. I think the Martians are ready to have at us again, sir. Some sort of test or other, no doubt.
Let go of me, you one-eyed monster. I'm coming. Don't push. We're outside the cave. They're cutting our bonds. See, Captain, they aren't hurting us after all. Here's the brick alley. There's Mr. Hate's underwear waving on the clothesline. See all the people from the beer hall? What are they waiting for? To see us die. Captain, what's wrong with Holloway? He's acting queer. At least he's better off than us. He can't see these creatures' faces and bodies. It's enough to turn a man's stomach. This must be their amphitheater. That looks like an obstacle course. I gather from their sign lingo that if we make it through the obstacles, we're free. Footnote. Nobody's ever gotten through alive yet. Seems they want you to go first, Berman. Good luck, boy. So long, Captain. So long, Gus. So long, Holloway. Berman's running down alley with an easy, long-muscled stride. I hear him yelling high and clear, even though he's getting far away. Here comes an automobile. Berman! Ah! It hit him! He's fallen! Berman, get up! Get up! Stay here, Holloway. It's not your turn yet. My turn? What do you mean? Someone's got to help Berman. Holloway, come back! Oh, man, I don't want to see this. Lift up my legs. Put them down. Breathe out. Breathe in. Swing arms. Swing legs. Chew my tongue. Blink my eyes. Berman, here I come. Gee, things are crazy funny. Here comes an ice wagon trundling along. It's coming right at me. I can't see to get around it. It's coming so fast I'll jump inside it. Jump, jump. Cool. Ice pick. Chick, chick, chick. I hear the captain screaming off 1,000,000 hot miles gone. Chick, chick, chick around the ice perimeter. The ice wagon is thundering, rioting, jouncing, shaking, rolling on big rusty iron wheels, smelling of sour ammonia, bouncing on a corduroy dirt and brick alley road. The rear end of it seems to be snapping shut with many ice prongs. I feel intense pain in my left leg. Chick, 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 chick. Piece of ice. Cold square, cold cube, a shuddering and convulsing, a trembler. The wagon wheels stop rolling. I jump down and run away. The wrecked wagon. Did the wagon roll over Berman? I hope not. A fence here. I'll jump over it. Another popcorn machine. Very warm, very hot. All flame and red fire and burning metal knobs. Oops. I didn't mean to strike the popcorn man down. Hello, Berman. What are you doing in my arms? How'd you get here? Did I pick you up? And why? An obstacle race at the high school? You're heavy. I'm tired. Dogs nipping at my heels. How far am I supposed to carry you? I hear the captain screaming me on. For why? For why? Here comes the big-bagged truant officer with a club in his hand to take me back to school. He looks mean and broad. I kicked the truant officer's shins and kicked him in the face. Mama won't like that. Yes, Mommy. No, Mommy. That's unfair. That's not ethical fighting. Something went squish. Let's forget about it, shall we? Breathing hard. Here comes the gang after me. All the rough, bristly Irishmen and scarred Norwegians and stubborn Italians. Hit, kick, wrestle. Here comes a swift car. Fast, fast. I hope I can duck with you, Berman. Here comes another car from the opposite way, if I work things right. Stop screaming, Berman. The cars crashed into each other. The cars still roll, tumbling like two animals tearing at each other's throats. Not far to go now, Berman. To the end of the alley just ahead. I'll sleep for 40 years when this is over. Where'd I get this flashlight in my hand? From one of those guys I knocked down? From the popcorn man? I'll poke it in front of me. People run away. Maybe they don't like its light in their eyes. The end of the alley! There's the Green Valley and my house. And there's Mom and Pop waiting. Hey, let's sing. Let's dance. We're going home. Holloway, you so-and-so, you did it! Dark. Sleep. Wake up slow. Listen. And Holloway ran down that amphitheater nonchalant as a high school kid jumping hurdles. A big saffron Martian beast with a mouth so damn big it looks like the rear end of a delivery truck lunged forward square at Holloway. What'd Holloway do? Holloway jumped right inside the monster's mouth. Right inside! What happened then? The animal looked dumbfounded. It tried to spit out. Then to top it all, what did Holloway do? I ask you, what did he do? He drew forth his Boy Scout blade and went chick, chick, chick all around the bloody interior, pretending like he's holed up in an ice wagon, chipping himself off pieces of ice. No? On my honor. The monster, after taking a bit of this chick, chick, chick business, leaped around, cavorting, floundering, rocking, tossing, and then, with a spout of blood, out popped Holloway, grinning like a kid, and on he ran, dodging spears and pretending they were pebbles, leaping a line of crouched warriors and saying they were picket fenced. Then he lifted Berman and trotted with him until he met a 300-pound Martian wrestler. Holloway supposed that it was the truant officer and promptly kicked him in the face. Then he knocked down another guy, working furiously at the buttons of a paralysis machine, which looked to Holloway like a popcorn wagon, after which two gigantic black Martian leopards attacked, resembling to him nothing more than two very bad drivers in dark automobiles. Holloway sidestepped, the two cars crashed and tore at each other, fighting. Holloway pumped on, shooting people with his flashlight, which he retrieved from the popcorn man, pointing the flash at people. He was amazed when they vanished, and oh. Holloway's waking up. I saw his eyelids flicker. Quiet, everyone. Holloway, you awake? Yeah, I've been listening to you talk for 5 minutes. I still don't understand. Nothing happened at all. How long I've been asleep? 2 days. Nothing happened, eh? Nothing except you got the Martians kowtowing, that's all, brother. Your spectacular performance impressed people. The enemy suddenly decided that if one Earthman could do what you did, what would happen if 1 million more came? Everybody keeps on with this joking, this lying about Mars. Stop it. Where am I? Aboard the rocket, about to take off. Leave Earth? No, I don't want to leave Earth. Good green Earth. Let go, I'm afraid. Let go of me. Stop the ship. Holloway, this is Mars. We're going back to Earth. Liars, all of you. I don't want to go to Mars. I want to stay here on Earth. Holy cow, here we go again. Hold him down, Gus. Hey, doctor, on the double. Come help Holloway change his mind back, will you? Liars! You can't do this! Liars! Liars! End of Defense Mech by Ray Bradbury.